Welcome back to Curiosity Class, the podcast where we break down complex topics into easy to understand ideas and bite-sized pieces. My name is Jeff Album, and I've been a curious person my entire life. Inspired by Albert Einstein's quote, "If you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough," we aim to make learning accessible and engaging. On this show, we're going to bring you experts from various fields, ranging from personal finance to physics, to help you understand everything from 401ks to how airplanes fly. So let's dive in and satisfy our curiosity together. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Curiosity Class. Today, we're going to be doing a follow-on episode to the episode I did about how to analyze a rental property. And what we're going to do, because I realized we never talked about, we got to the point where it was negatively cash flowing, and then we kind of ended the episode. And so what I thought would be interesting is, let's say you get to that point, you did a quick back of the napkin math and it negatively cash flowed. Should you just move on? Should you just scrap that deal entirely? Or are there levers you can pull to make that deal more appealing or attractive? So that's what I wanted to do today, was go through what are those levers you can pull and what are some areas or things you can do that might take a deal from being in negative cash flow territory to being in positive cash flow territory. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's dive in and get started. All right. So this is the spreadsheet we were working on last time, and just some quick high level overview to remember where we're at. This was I believe it was a duplex we were analyzing in St. Louis. The purchase price was $170,000. We were putting 20% down. Our interest rate was 7.5%, amortized over 30 years, 30-year fixed rate mortgage. We were anticipating $1,700 in monthly rental income. And then these were our monthly operating expenses. So property tax and insurance we got from the realtor listing. Remember, we found our total payment, and then we said, okay, based on that, what is our mortgage going to be? What is our property tax, et cetera? And so if you remember, your mortgage, what most people call their mortgage, is actually 4 different things. So it's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, which is, you can use the acronym PITI, P-I-T-I. So that's if you want some industry jargon, if you want to say, hey, is that my principal and interest, or does that include taxes or insurance when you're asking for what your total payment is going to be? Good fun tip there. $200 a month for maintenance because things break and you're going to need to replace them. 10% for property management fees, 10% for utilities, and then a vacancy reserve of an additional 10%. And so what that got us to when we were analyzing this was the following. After all of our operating expenses, and remember we just talked about our net operating income, or NOI, as being almost $700 a month, but then remembering that does not include our mortgage payment. So after we account for our mortgage payment, we're in negative cash flow territory. So in this example, we left it that we were negatively cash flowing $250 a month. So obviously not ideal. However, I wanted to run through ways that levers we could pull to change this and maybe take this from being a deal that we would not be excited about to being a deal that we are excited about. So the first lever that I want to show you how it kind of affects things is the purchase price, right? This is one of the largest levers you can pull to really change a lot of your outcome. There's a lot of adages people talk about in real estate. You make your money on the buy, the price is right, all these things. And the purchase price really is, at the end of the day, a huge, huge, huge part of if a deal is a good deal or a not good deal. So the list price was $170. Let's see what happens if we offered $150. Right? What does that do? Just changing that alone, nothing else. Already we're closer to being we basically are negatively cash flowing less than we were before, right? Which makes sense. We're paying less for it. So inherently our monthly cost should also be less, right? Okay. So let's see what happens if we drop this to $130. Now we're so close. So we're right there on the cusp. So I think we've gone far enough down on the purchase price. Now let's say we also expect reasonably that we can rent this for $1,800 a month, right? Because this is another great lever, is if you can get more in rental income, sometimes you buy a deal and the rents are what's called below market. So maybe or your property manager tells you that, hey, this is a super appreciating area. People are really stoked to live here. It's rented for $500 now, but we could for sure get $650 out of all of them. This is a very common scenario, right? So Maybe you think you can get $1,800 a month in rent when they were previously getting $1,700. So now, all of a sudden, we're in positive cash flow territory, right? We are positively cash flowing $60 a month. So a couple things to say about spreadsheets and spreadsheet math. The only thing that this guarantees, the only thing that the $60.15 guarantees, is that you will not have $60.15 hit your bank account probably ever if you actually were to buy this deal in real life. Spreadsheets are really helpful for directionally understanding, is this a good deal or a not good deal? However, it's really, really hard to put all of the variables of the real world into a spreadsheet to give you an accurate understanding of what dollars amounts are going to hit your bank account every month. As an example, we're kind of giving ourselves the leeway of saying, okay, our maintenance reserve is $200 every month. That means every month we're putting aside $200 into a maintenance fund, so to speak, right? So every month, $200. So if we've owned the property for 3 months, we should have $600 in our maintenance reserve. But maintenance doesn't know and doesn't really care how much money we've set aside for it, right? So we might get a maintenance bill. We might need to replace something or do something that we get a bill for $1,000. And it might happen in month 3, right? And so we only have $600 saved up, but we owe $1,000. So now, shoot, we're in the hole $400, right? So that's how real life works. So don't be surprised if you go through this math and then you buy the property and you're saying, well, wait a second, I'm not getting $60 every month. Like, this is not, real estate's not good. You need to look at it at a little bit over a longer time horizon. So at the end of the year, approximately, you should have 60 times 12, which is $720 in positive net pure profit and cash flow. And so if you're directionally in that ballpark, you're like, at the end of the year, after all is said and done, after all your maintenance, all your expenses, whatever, you're up, so to speak, $720. Then this is pretty accurate, right? So maybe it's not exactly accurate on a monthly basis, but on a yearly or annual basis, it is. So just a quick note on spreadsheet math, because it's very important. So so far we've talked about the purchase price and the rental income you can get. Let's take a look at some other levers and see what else we can do to make this deal more attractive. So maybe we can find a new lender or a different lender that is able to get us 7.3%. Or you can do something called buying down or paying points on a loan. So you pay an upfront cost, and then over the course of the loan, your interest rate is lower. So maybe we can find one or pay a lender a little bit more to get a 7.3% rate. There's only so much you can drop this, right? Like, everyone, this is being recorded in November of 2025. So right now, rates are actually kind of high. And it's unclear when or if they're going to come down. If we were recording this in November 2021, people could get sub 4% rates on investment properties. Like, it was just a different time. So you can't really find that in 2025's market. But there is a little bit of leeway and wiggle room here. So now let's turn to our expenses, because there's the two things you can do is you can increase income or decrease expenses, right? Property taxes and insurance, there's probably not a ton of leeway here, definitely not with property tax, but maybe you can find a less expensive insurance policy. So maybe it's only $130 a month instead of $150. Maintenance reserve, it's probably wise to keep as $200. But maybe, as an example, you spend money up front. So let's say you have a big lawn at the property you're looking at, big grass area, and it costs $50 a month to mow the lawn. And so you say, okay, well, I can continue to pay that $50 every month, or I can pay a couple $1,000s up front and put in turf, which obviously does not need to be mowed or kept up in the same amount as grass does. So maybe you can drop this maintenance budget to $150 a month. Property management is probably good at 10%. There's not a lot of leeway you can do there, but it never hurts to ask. You can say, hey, I would love to keep working with you. I plan to buy more properties. Are you open to working out some sort of system where, right now I'm being charged 10%. When I get to 3 properties that you manage, can you charge me 9%? Is that reasonable? Right? So there are some leeway here, and this is all it's a negotiation. So it never hurts to ask these questions, and your property manager is very free to tell you, no, our policy is 10%. That's what it is. If you want something less, go somewhere else, and you can say, okay, understood. Utilities, again, there's not a lot you can do. There are some things you can do. For example, you could do something called bill backs, where you charge your tenants like a set fee for water or for electricity if you're paying for utilities in your name. There are some cool, like, you can, if your property is metered correctly or metered in this way, like you can have separate water meters for each unit, which is really easy to say, like, okay, unit A is using this much water, unit B is using this much water. But if you only have one meter for 2 units, it's kind of hard to say like how much water unit A versus unit B is using. So, there's a little bit of leeway, but not a ton. And vacancy is probably wise to keep it 10% as well. So we made a couple changes. Now let's see what that does to our total deal. So if we go back here, now we're in pretty solid territory, right? $150 a month in positive cash flow. So this is something that's definitely worth taking a look at and understanding, like, okay, is this something that we're interested in pursuing? But I just wanted to show how you can maybe take a deal that, at least in the first pass, is not something that you're interested in doing and doesn't seem like a quote unquote good deal, and levers you can pull to make it a better deal. And the last thing I want to say is about purchase price. So maybe some of you are thinking of, well, wait, it was listed at 170. Who would ever take 130 for this, right? And the list price of a piece of real estate is not set in stone. It's kind of an arbitrary number, actually. There's market dynamics in play. So if you offer 20 grand, you're unlikely to get a property if it's listed at 170, right? But if you offer 130 and no one else offers anything, you're actually very likely to get that property, right? So a couple more things to say on this is there's nothing stopping you from quote unquote lowballing every property that you make an offer on. However, the real estate industry is actually pretty small. And especially if you're investing in primarily a single market, you don't want to earn the reputation of being someone who just lowballs people, because that's not nice. You're not being a nice person. It's not pleasant to work with you if every property that you offer on, you're just saying 20 grand, 20 grand, 20 grand, right? Like the agent who works with you is not going to like working with you. You're not going to make a lot of friends that way. So don't do that. The TLDR. That being said, you also don't have to offer what the list price is every time. So just because it's listed for 170 doesn't mean you have to offer 170. In this instance, you can say, hey, I ran the numbers. Based on my numbers, I'm going to offer, the most I can do is 130. Is that reasonable? They might say no. They might say yes, right? And you can even say, hey, I'll show you my numbers. Like, this is what I'm seeing. Let me know where you disagree, right? But you always want to make sure that you're looking out for, at the end of the day, like it's your investment. So you need to be the one doing the diligence and not letting people tell you the numbers, and making sure that you're comfortable with the numbers that you come to. So that is a little bit of what to do and the levers you can pull for a real estate deal, for an investment property. I hope that was helpful. I hope you liked it. If you did and you want to see more of this stuff, let me know. Please feel free to like and subscribe and follow Curiosity Class on Spotify and Apple Music. And as always, I very much appreciate your time, and thank you for listening. Bye, everybody.